So today, I want to talk about crime, criminals, and what each and every one of us will do about it. So, I look at the signs here, it says, Gates is friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So I think most of us here already know about Jeffrey Epstein, but for the crowds on the internet, I'll do a brief recap. There's a convicted pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein. He has his own island, or had his own island. And sometime after Bill Gates became friends with this pedophile who has his own island, Gates went from being a software tycoon to an international foundation that poisoned millions of children in Africa and India with a vaccine. And this was all with the World Health Organization's endorsement. So, we have an example of criminality starting with pedophilia. Let's roll back not even 50 years in Canada's history. There was something called residential schools. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police stole children from their parents, kidnapped children to put them in residential schools where these children were abused, raped, and murdered. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police participated in this. Now, the reason the Royal Canadian Mounted Police are called royal is because they don't actually serve any of us, even though we pay for them. They serve the crown. That's why they're called royal. Anytime you enter a courtroom, the judge actually serves an oath to the crown. How many people here hate Bill Gates? When a person abuses an animal, for example, beating a dog with a stick, the dog often attacks the stick, not the person holding it. Justin Trudeau is just the stick. So then the question is, who is holding that stick? We have some very good answers out here. I'll give you one answer for you guys to consider and do your research on. The Prime Minister of Canada is the Prime Minister in the Church of the Queen of England. Not a church under God, a church under a sovereign. Not the creator. That's something to think about. Is that real? Is the Church of the Queen really a church, an unholy church? Because, here's something to think about. Residential schools were signed into effect by royal assent. They existed because the royal family signed off on it and made them a reality. And then used the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to populate those residential schools. This is a royal family with at least one pedophile. Prince Andrew. We don't know how many others there are in this royal family. Now, this is a message for everyone in law enforcement. I hope you've all watched the speech I did about law enforcement that I gave to the truckers. But if you haven't, this message is for you. Do people here think that the bodyguards of a criminal that guard criminals so that they can do criminal activities such as abuse of children, murder, and extortion. Are those bodyguards of a criminal criminals as well? Just as guilty. So I was wondering for a long time, because it was back in November of last year, 6 months ago, that Mel Bruchet and I filed police reports about conflict of interest. We filed it with the North Vancouver RCMP. We even found a forensic financial analyst to help them look into conflicts of interest of Bonnie Henry, Pfizer, John Horgan, Pfizer, and the health industrial complex, and pharmacy. And guess what the RCMP did?
Nothing.
Nothing. And then sometime after that, in Ottawa, RCMP members committed acts of vandalism, attempted murder. And RCMP, I hope you're listening right now. Because although I'm not a horseman, I know a thing or two about horses. Horses do not want to trip over anything.
Hell no.
They weigh 1 ton. They don't want to break a leg.
They go where you tell them to.
Exactly. Horses don't run over people unless the rider is telling the horse to do so against the horse's will. Have we seen any attempted murder charges brought up against that horse rider?
No!
Do you want to know why?
Yes?
Because it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Everything they have done is with the blessing of the Queen. So, the Queen, in a family of pedophiles, a multi-billionaire, an associate of pedophiles. We don't know if he's actually a pedophile or not.
He's a goof!
You have criminals upon criminals. And the enforcement guards of these criminals are our very own law enforcement.
Our Prime Minister's a goof. He paid
Is it any wonder?
$2.25 million to cover it up!
Is it any wonder why they treat us with such disdain? In Coutts, Alberta, there was a standoff between families, men, women, and children, standing in a line, faced off with unbadged, black uniformed enforcement sent by the Prime Minister working on behalf of the Queen. Thanks to one of the protest organizers in Coutts, he diffused the situation. And what did those families hear? The sound of dozens upon dozens of safety locks. That's the switch on the machine gun that puts it back onto safety so it can't accidentally be fired. They heard safety switches going off. These so-called officers in uniform were pointing machine guns with the safeties off at children. This should not come as a shock to anyone, because less than 50 years ago, the RCMP kidnapped children and forced them to go to places where they got abused, raped, and murdered. This is history repeating itself. So if you work for law enforcement, you have a choice. You can choose to take a paycheck from a criminal organization. This is a paycheck and a and a pension that you cannot take with you when you die. In fact, even Bill Gates can't take anything with him when he dies. The only thing you can take is the deeds you've done, the memories you've made, and the friends and the people who will remember you. So, law enforcement, I ask you to find the justice in your soul. Make a choice between being loved and respected for eternity, or to have 10 or 15 years of paychecks and a bank account you can't take with you. So here's the solution for each and every one of us. There's a saying, don't take the law into your own hands. Do you know why that saying was popularized in culture? Because that is what they are afraid of. If each and every one of us takes the law into our own hands, we can eliminate injustice. Taking the law into your own hands starts with the heart. You have to find the justice in your heart. You have to be honest with yourself. And once you have found justice in the Plato sense, which is excellence of the soul, and you find honesty with yourself, you can start sharing that honesty and that justice with those around you. Once you have justice in your hearts, you can take the law into your own hands. And as people gathering together in groups, taking justice in our hearts and the law into our own hands, we establish jurisdictions, neighborhood by neighborhood. We establish groups of people who assemble into courts. And should a criminal enter our jurisdiction, our neighborhood, a criminal that we have tried with due process, with the same due process and truth that we would try upon ourselves, we can order a warrant for that person's arrest. So if that person ever sets foot in Cole Harbor, in Kitsilano, in North Grandview, in Richmond, Surrey, Langley, Chilliwack, Hope, there is a jurisdiction of men and women who have taken the law into their own hands. Not a law that was written, because believe it or not, the Creator doesn't often write things down. This is the law that the Creator put in each and every one of our hearts. And it's up to us to take that justice, that divine law that was born into each and every one of us, put it in our hands and share it with others. And when there is a crime, it is up to us to make it right. The Creator has given us the power. We no longer will have to rely on the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police that didn't investigate Trudeau for SNC Lavalin. Why didn't the RCMP investigate the Prime Minister of the Queen? Because they are all the same criminal.
No shit.
I just wanted to...
Why
That's Miss Dr. Nagase's.
did the RCMP not even investigate the We Charities corruption scandal? Because they had the blessing of the Queen not to investigate the Queen's Prime Minister.
I don't know. I hope not.
This
Oh, that's good.
is the corruption that has happened over and over and over again. We cannot entrust justice. We cannot entrust our children's lives to law enforcement, to a prime minister that does not swear an oath to anyone but the Queen. For those of you who doubt what I am saying, please look up Justin Trudeau's swearing of oath ceremony. He does not swear an oath to the Charter. He does not swear an oath to men, women, and children of Canada. He only swears an oath to the Queen.
Dishonorable.
This is dishonor. This is crime. And if you take a paycheck from a criminal to protect a criminal so that they can continue doing their criminal acts, then you too are a criminal. But you don't have to remain a criminal. But in the meantime, we, men, women, and children, will find justice and take the law into our own hands, because our survival depends on it. Thank you very much.
Oh, he always has amazing information. Do your research.